Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles beat the Chiefs in a blowout. Super Bowl over. The 2024 NFL season over. Hi, welcome back to the Hold My Helmet Football Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Reichling.
Co-host Dylan Boyle.
What's up, man?
What's up?
Last episode, we'll take a little break after this episode, probably for like about a month. Right before free agency will start up again. But, dude, this is not what I expected. And I'm sure you did pick the Eagles to win this game. But I'm sure this isn't what you expected either.
This is the last thing I was expecting, in all honesty. Even at halftime, halftime I took a parlay. I put a bunch of stuff together, and then I did Kansas City Chiefs minus 8.5. I'm sorry, plus 8.5. So I thought they were going to keep it close. Come back. Go in the locker room, kind of sort yourself together, and come back out and come out firing. But that's the complete opposite of what happened. They put it together in like the last 10 minutes of the game.
And that was what was happening all season. They had a lot of comeback. I think they had a record for most comeback victories in the season. Mm-hmm. So that's what they were doing all season. And when Cooper DeJean had the pick six, and then he threw the interception to Zach Ball, and I'm pretty sure the very next drive.
Not good plays.
In my head, though, I'm like, wow, this is actually setting up to become one of the best comebacks in NFL history. That's what I was thinking at that time, because all the evidence up until that point showed me that Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are going to come back.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case. He wasn't good. Mahomes was not good. He was awful. This is probably the best third down team in the league this year, and they were terrible on third down. And Mahomes is stepping up. Look, we'll get into the offensive line in a second, but Mahomes is stepping up into pressure, like running into sacks in the way. Kind of just like, he looked discombobulated in this game. This is definitely a legacy-defining game for Mahomes, honestly in a bad way, because if you look at his Super Bowl numbers in his career,
3-2 now.
3-2, 10 touchdowns, 7 picks. That's like, okay, not really. Like an 86 passer rating in the Super Bowl in his career. That is not good. So he's had 3 very strong performances, and he's had 2 where he's shit the bed. I mean, I'll give him slack in that Tampa Super Bowl because
first time there,
and he played his ass off. Well, it was the second, but like it was his first loss. But he played his ass off. You remember that he threw the one falling sideways that hit the guy in the face mask. Like he played his ass off. Yeah. This was just a straight up terrible performance.
All around. Yeah.
This might have been the worst performance of Patrick Mahomes' career. Just so happens to be in the Super Bowl, but this is an all-time low for him.
I was kind of waiting for this team to implode, and I didn't think it was going to come this late. I going into the Super Bowl, I'm like, damn, they kind of proved me wrong. They even though they kept it very close, they clutch up in playoffs. So I thought they were going to keep it close, but it just wasn't sustainable for what they were doing. You can't just stick in games and then just pull something out of your sleeve in the last drive. When you have a dominant team like the Eagles, with Saquon Barkley, you can only do so much. I mean, if your defense isn't holding up against this team, they're just gonna run all over you. And they did it in all the ways that you didn't think they would do it.
That's what's crazy about it. If you had told me Saquon Barkley was averaging like 2-3 yards per carry, doesn't get 100 yards in this game, I'm telling you the Chiefs win easily. The fact that they held Barkley in check, but they only held Barkley in check. That's all they held. Mm-hmm. They just had an answer. The Eagles had an answer for every one of Spagnuolo's blitzes, misdirection, misconceptions. Like they had an answer for everything. They had an answer. A.J. Brown had a couple big catches. Devontae Smith on the deep ball. Jalen Hurts played a perfect game. He did. He had one bad pick down the sideline when he was pressured. Other than that, perfect game. Super Bowl MVP. Gotta give him his props. But back on the Chiefs. We'll get into the Eagles in a second. Joe Thuney, he's a Pro Bowl guard. They moved him to tackle because their starting left tackle was out for the season. So they moved him to left tackle. He did a fine job this year, but he got torched in this game. And then the replacement guard, I forgot his name, but the guy who replaced Joe Thuney on the line, the guard, he was getting worked the entire game. He was basically on ice skates. It was almost like he was on ice skates, and he didn't know how to ice skate. He was flopping around like a fish.
And then you have Travis Kelce having blocking assignments that is completely blowing. I mean, I saw this one play where he was lined up on the right side, and they did it in slow-mo, and everybody's up off the line, and Aaron, he's still in his stance. It's just like he was going slow. He wasn't checked in this game, and it showed on. If you looked at play by play and looked at his performance, his routes, there was one play where he was, he broke out of a tackle, and then he's, just literally just walking. Well, Patrick Mahomes is literally doing everything. He was just checked out during the game, and it's like the one game you need him to be here, there, he's, and I get it, like, the spirit isn't high when you're getting blown out 22-0, but you got to stick in it the whole way through.
And it's crazy because we all know that he's not a strong blocker, but when he's not catching passes, what value is he? Because you only have him out there because the threat of him going out for a pass, catching, getting a big gain. But if you're just going to use him as a blocker, put Noah Gray in there. Like at that point, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because I knew after, I think it was the Texans playoff game against the Texans, when he caught the ball in the middle of the field and then made a man miss, and then he was running and the guy called up to him. He looked so slow there. That's when I knew that he should retire. I think he's done.
He has to be. I mean, the performance that he put up this week, it's...
And everyone always said, he was saving it for the playoffs. This was not a good playoff run for him. I think he had one decent game, that Texans game. Last week against the Bills, 2 weeks ago against the Bills, didn't do anything. Super Bowl, didn't do anything. So, they're going to get Rashee Rice back. They got Marquise Brown back late in the season. Hopkins had a huge drop that one time. That hit him too, flopping like a fish. But that guard, man, that replacement guard, they were getting
set him up for failure.
They were getting crushed up the middle. Honestly, even their Pro Bowl center and their Pro Bowl right guard were getting Creed Humphrey. They were not. That line just imploded. And then Mahomes was stepping up into how many times did Mahomes run up in the pocket and
just get grabbed and thrown down
and ran into many sacks where I felt like he should have rolled out, but he ran up into the sack because he was just flustered. He was flustered, and you didn't see him really audible at the line of scrimmage, calling extra protections or whatever. I didn't see a lot of chips from the running back position. I didn't see a lot of chips from the tight end position.
They tried to.
And when they did, like you said, Travis Kelce didn't even get up off the line. Didn't even try. Not that he didn't try, but...
He just wasn't quick, and I don't know what was going on.
He's not a good blocker as it is. So now when you take away his speed, too, on top of that, you're kind of screwed. So, like I said, they only stopped Saquon. They didn't stop anything else. But really, the MVP of this game, yes, it was Jalen Hurts, but it's really the Eagles' defense. And the reason they lost was the Eagles... Yeah. And Cooper DeJean, pick six.
Wasn't his birthday too?
Yeah, and it was Saquon's birthday.
And it was
too.
Saquon. What a way to cap off your birthday.
Everyone could blame the Chiefs' defense for letting up 40+ points, but it was. Technically there was a pick six, so it might have been a little less than that. But it was the Chiefs' offense that lost them this game. Mm-hmm. It really was. If you watch that game through and through, you look at Mahomes' numbers at the end of the game. They weren't bad. 250 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. He had an awful game. That was all garbage time numbers. And I think you could agree with that.
Absolutely.
That did not show how bad he was in that first half.
And then people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you just did that. Were you guys not just watching what he did for 3 quarters? This is what he's supposed to be doing the whole game.
In the first half, I think they had 1 first down the first drive, and that was it. They were dead in the first half.
So I think it was by halftime, the Eagles had more points than they had yards, which is mind blowing.
I think Cooper DeJean almost had as many yards on his pick six than they had in that first half. The offense, that's crazy. That's unheard of.
Somebody having more points than you have yards in a half, it's mind blowing.
And Patrick Mahomes, I said this is a legacy defining game in a negative way, in a negative connotation. Why do I say that? We're always comparing him to Tom Brady at this point because he's the modern day GOAT. He's not the GOAT. Tom Brady's the GOAT, but he's been the modern day best player, right? But Tom Brady, he lost 3 Super Bowls too, but he won 7. Not even trying to make that point. His losses, the Eagles game, he threw 500 yards. The Giants games, the Giants did shut him down, those 2 losses. But all of his wins, that Seattle,
they stuck in every single one of those games.
Exactly.
The point differential was much, much lower.
3 points, 4 points, 2 points.
They're at minus 40, I think now.
Yes, they got blown out in 2 Super Bowls. When have you ever heard of a dynasty getting blown out in more than 1 Super Bowl? It happens sometimes. You have a bad game. Mm-hmm. But twice now this has happened. Twice. So I was saying Mahomes is the second best quarterback of all time already. I don't know. It's tough for me now because his numbers have gotten worse the last couple of seasons. Mm-hmm. I've chose to ignore that because of his success in the postseason, his numbers in the postseason.
Has he peaked?
But now his postseason's starting to climax a little bit. It's starting to plateau.
Yeah.
Has he peaked? I think that's a fair question to ask. Has he peaked? Because his numbers have declined in the regular season, and now I'm not going to say he's choking in the biggest moments, but he gets back to the Super Bowl, and that was you cannot make excuses for Patrick Mahomes in this game. And his line was terrible, but that was the worst performance I've ever seen from him. It's like you have to remember. You're gonna remember this now, no matter what. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, though. He would, if he retired today, he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. But we can't compare. Look, this was his chance to potentially catch Brady, because Brady's at 7. He made it to 10, and if Mahomes won this, he would have been at 4. What's the odds he gets to 5 more Super Bowls, wins 4 more in the next 10 years or whatever? I think you might be onto something. He might have plateaued. What do you think about that? Because it's a fair question to ask.
I mean, it's showing that the proof is in the pudding, but it's one season. You gotta give him time. I'm not ready to jump off the boat yet. I think he's still gonna be in the Super Bowl for plenty of more years, and I feel like this might just be just one of those years.
It's funny. Okay, go ahead.
We just hold such a high standard on this team. I think you get a couple more pieces. You kind of get. I feel like this team, it's like a lot of pieces just thrown together that don't really nothing's kind of working how it should. I think you give it some time. You add a couple more pieces. You get rid of some pieces that don't work, and you make it work over the long run.
It's crazy too, because the running game, they really didn't run the ball at all in this game. If you really look at the game,
Pacheco didn't do anything. Kareem Hunt didn't do anything.
I know Pacheco had a serious injury and he was out for a long time. But what has happened to him since he's come back? He's been pedestrian, and he was a force last season and the season before. He was a main factor of this offense. He's been non-existent. So that's a big blow, Dylan. You have this guy who's been one of your top contributors on offense the last couple seasons, Isaiah Pacheco, and he was it's almost like he wasn't even there. Am I wrong? I don't know. It's weird. So you lose to him. Kelsey's fallen off.
Kelsey's done after this
year.
So yeah.
I understand. It's just a combination of the numbers starting to slightly decline, and then now he's getting blown out in the Super Bowl again. It's he's still the best quarterback in the league. He is the best quarterback in the NFL by far. He's still.
I don't think by far. I think Josh Allen is right there with him, especially after the performance that both of them put up this season.
Talent-wise, I definitely agree with you. Josh Allen's right there with Mahomes. But as far as success, Mahomes, Mahomes
longevity.
Right. The thing is, we say, oh yeah, he'll go back to a Super Bowl, no problem, because he's been to 5. So why wouldn't he go to a 6? I mean, he's been to 5 in how many years has he been a starter? 7 or 6? I think he lost to the Bengals. Yeah, so 6 years as a starter, he's been to 5 Super Bowls. So that makes you think, he's going to go back almost maybe even every other year. But we thought this with a lot of quarterbacks. Tom Brady had a 10-year stretch where he didn't make a Super Bowl, or didn't win a Super Bowl, I should say. Aaron Rodgers, very young, won a Super Bowl. We're this guy's going to be back. He's going to be competing with Joe Montana when he might make multiple Super Bowls. Never made it back. Never even came close. Dan Marino, second year in the league, MVP, makes a Super Bowl. He'll be back. Never goes back. It happens a lot. So we're so in tune to think that he's going to go back. But look at the quarterbacks in this division. Like you said, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. One of these guys are going to win.
CJ Stroud.
Exactly. Yeah. These guys are going to be competing with Mahomes. They're all young too, so they're all around the same age. These guys are all going to be fighting for a Super Bowl too.
Justin Herbert. The list goes on and on.
So they're in a tough spot because I said this about CJ Stroud last season, going to the season with the Texans and everything. They're the hunted. Okay, so what that means is teams are gunning for their head. And I don't know, they might actually end up being motivated by this loss. They might end up.
That's what I was trying to get at.
Or sorry to cut you off here. Or it almost psychs them out. Or it psychs them out and they can't shake it. You know what I mean? Where it's such a bad loss that you can't get the taste out of your mouth.
Yeah.
You go into the next season a little off because you see Kelsey's done. You clearly saw in that game Kelsey's done. Pacheco didn't look the same. So now you kind of lost your confidence a little bit. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole offseason to prepare, but it could have rattled them. But
and it wasn't even a close game. It was a game. It's wow. I feel like any team could have done this. I mean, there's been teams, that keep it competitive with the Eagles. I mean, but they just got worked this game, and it stirs up the question. It's are they the best team in the NFL? I mean, they got completely devoured by the Eagles. It was basically a shutout, and I don't know.
It's tough. It really is tough. I mean, I feel like we could go on for hours about this Chiefs dynasty. Well, the dynasty that was, like, will it still be? It's like they could have three-peated. I thought after beating the Bills that they were on this destiny to three-peat again. And it just was such a shock to, like, not even, like, if they were a loss and it was a competitive fight.
Game, yeah.
Okay, happens. But, like, they get blown out like that by... And you have Andy Reid, who's, for one, great off a bye. So they had 2 weeks to prepare for this. They have Mahomes and Chris Jones. You know, Kelsey's has the playoff experience. You have people there, Spagnuolo, the DC. The Eagles have the better roster, but the Chiefs... They have the coaches and the players that are more prepared for the situation since from being there before.
Mm-hmm.
So the Eagles the Eagles also played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, so they have the experience too. But what I'm trying to get at is, it just was such a shocking thing because your expectations for them are up here, especially off a bye. Andy Reid. It's almost like Nick Sirianni almost outcoached Andy Reid, which is like, who would have thought we'd be saying that a couple of weeks ago? Nick Sirianni, we both called for his job at the end of last season. They lost like 5 games in a row. They lost to the Bucs in the wild card round. We were calling for his head. We're like, Sirianni, he doesn't call plays, and that's a big problem for me. You know, I like my offensive head coach calling his own plays. Maybe that's a fault of mine. I got to work on that because clearly this team was fired up. Like, they came out guns blazing in this game. There's some attitude that Sirianni brings to this team that's valuable. Yeah, so I don't know how you feel about that, but I think as far as right now, we've been wrong on him. So go ahead.
Well, I'm definitely hopping off the calling for Nick Sirianni's job boat. I think you're right. He gets his team fired up. What he does. All that extracurricular stuff. Going at it with the fans. Whatever, you can leave it, you can take it, you can do what you want.
You win the Super Bowl, you win
exactly, and his teammates respect him. It's just the Philly media that stir things up. It's like, oh, what's going on with Nick Sirianni and AJ Brown? I feel like that's stuff that happens on every other team, but it's not emphasized like it is on a team like this. They have kind of like a magnifying glass on them.
By the way, you bring up AJ Brown. Did you see what he posted? I think it was today or yesterday. He posted an Instagram post, or was it an X post? I saw it on Instagram though. He said, "Now after reflecting for a couple days, like this Super Bowl, yes, it was satisfied me, but it was a temporary satisfaction. What really satisfies me is when I burned a defensive back, when I put up, when I dominate the game." Score. Like, basically he was saying he's hungry for more and he wants to go back to back now, but 2, what he really loves is when he torches the defensive back, but he's pretty much when he puts up numbers. So I don't know if that was like throwing shots about him not getting because he only had 3 catches.
No, and I think that's another thing that gets misconstrued a lot. What they say on social media. That's the type of energy that you want from your star wide receiver to an extent. Obviously, you don't want somebody that's going to cause problems, cause conflict, have other people's kind of go at each other. But you want that guy that's kind of hungry, and I think he was. I don't know what it was, but he was visibly upset on the sideline, and then a couple plays later, he went for that touchdown, and his emotions changed from there.
You see that though? Like, you kind of hit it right there. He's a little up and down, and I just felt like there was no need to even post that. Like, I don't know. It's just like sometimes just keep things to yourself because then there's no reason to put things out there for the Philly media to kind of torment you on, but that's besides the point. I just saw it today, so I figured I'd bring it up quickly. But back to Sirianni. 2 Super Bowl appearances in 3 years. Finally won a Super Bowl now. And you have to have reason to believe that they can win another in the future. They drafted really well in defense. They had 2 top corners, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. And the offensive line's really good. And
they have a young team that's up and coming.
Jalen Carter, that defense, man.
You got to give Jalen Hurts some credit.
He's Super Bowl MVP, yes.
He played his ass off.
And I think he's proven that he is a top 8 quarterback, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Top 5, I don't know, like Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow. Would you put Jalen Hurts there? Jaden Daniels, Matt Stafford? There's some people that would be up there.
He's proven at this point, so you have to give him that title until other quarterbacks prove it over him,
I wouldn't put him at 5. I'm more putting him at 7 I think 7's a fair number for him. Maybe 6. You can make the argument for 5. I wouldn't say it's crazy if you put him in the top 5. Just because of he's won a Super Bowl. He went to one a few years ago where he was also contending for an MVP in the regular season. And he's got great running ability. Strong. He has a great deep ball. You saw it on that throw to Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
So there's things he does better than some other quarterbacks.
And he's a locker room guy. That's a big part of it too.
It's his attitude.
It's his attitude towards the game. And I wouldn't be saying this if it wasn't that he put the team on his back, because they were shutting down the run game, and it came down to him with the throwing the ball and him making it work himself. Running it. Everything was kind of on his back, and he showed up.
Other than that one interception down the sideline,
it happened.
He was perfect.
I don't know if it was a miscommunication. It was a bad throw.
He got pressured too.
He was getting sacked.
Other than that throw, he was perfect. Other than that throw, he was absolutely perfect in this game.
Do you know what his rating was?
It had to have been over 100. I mean, he had
100%.
He had 3 touchdowns. I think he had like over a 70 completion percentage. I don't have the numbers right in front of me right now, but he won Super Bowl MVP because his numbers were pretty.
Yeah.
And there was not one specific guy in defense. I guess you could say, what's his name? Josh Sweat had 2.5 sacks, but
Josh Sweat was causing havoc. Yeah.
They all were. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. If you look at Nolan Smith's film in that Super Bowl, he looked elite. Like, that defense is scary.
This team is just such a well overall team. You have everything you want in every category. Defense, it's going all
offensive line, defensive line,
safeties,
corners, linebackers, wide receiver, tight end. And
it's crazy. I've never seen such a well-rounded team that's hitting every check mark.
That's the thing. They did the perfect combination of drafting players: Devontae Smith, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean.
They have fire first, second, third round,
and trading for players at the right time. AJ Brown, signing key free agent Saquon Barkley. They did everything right, and that's why they won the Super Bowl. And honestly, Eagles fans, we've been critical of Sirianni. We've even been critical of Jalen Hurts in the past. We've been critical of Eagles fans. You get your day. They earned the Super Bowl. They deserved it. They were dominating the regular season, dominating the playoffs, and they dominated in the Super Bowl. They potentially ended the dynasty. So congratulations to the Eagles. Yeah. Any other final words for that?
No, I mean, just to cap off, I mean, it's not like this, they kept it close. It's not, they didn't, it's not just because the Chiefs played bad. It's because the Eagles played an amazing game, and they showed what they can do.
It's just like it's
like a combination of both. Like, yeah, the Chiefs played bad, but the Eagles played even better.
It's just funny because everyone always looks at the Eagles' offense. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Goddard, Barkley, Jalen Hurts, the offensive line. Mm-hmm. Even without Kelsey, I think his replacement this year, Cam Jerkins, was the Pro Bowler. So the line, that defense is stacked. Like the defensive line alone, Jalen Carter looks like Aaron Donald now. Jalen Carter's out of his mind. Nolan Smith. And then you got the 2 corners, who are 2 top corners already. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. They have Reed Blankenship back there. C.J. Gardner-Johnson. When Darius Slay is your third best corner, Darius Slay is a player. So him being your third best corner, you're stacked, bro. You are stacked. Zach Bond, they got him. He was a special teams guy, Zach Bond. They get him. He's an all-pro linebacker now. He's first team all-pro. So Vic Fangio, too, the defensive coordinator, got ran out of town in Miami. They said he was too rough on the players. They didn't understand him. He goes here, and looks like they went immediately. Kellen Moore got a head coaching job
on the Saints, and that's the other thing you kind of your question is like, okay, yeah, they made it to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago too, and then all
they lost Steichen, they lost Gannon.
So are we gonna see a lag on this team with that?
The good thing is Fangio's not going anywhere. He's like kind of he's an older defensive coordinator that's probably not gonna get a head coaching job anymore. But you lost Kellen Moore. Great point. They need to find the right OC for this. Hopefully they have someone groomed on the staff that knows Kellen Moore's system, because I would just keep going what you just did. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the offense runs through Barkley, and if that's not working, then start doing the play action. Get Goddard. Goddard always seems to be wide open over that middle underneath throw. And yeah, this was the perfect storm for the Eagles, because I remember at one point they were 2-2, and I think we started calling for Sirianni's head, and then they pulled off like 10, 11 wins in a row, and we still thought it was the Lions' year. They didn't have to play the Lions, but I said the Commanders were going to beat them. They destroy the Commanders. I said the Chiefs are going to beat them. They destroy the Chiefs. So at some point, I got to give them respect. And I was wrong. Like Sirianni, we've shitted on him. He doesn't call his own plays. He's not really traditional. He's loud, obnoxious, sometimes even a little annoying.
But it works with this team.
He wins.
It works.
He wins. I think he has one of the best records of all time as far as...
I've heard that too. Yeah.
He's up there right now. I mean, like, think about every year. His first season as head coach, they made the playoffs before they traded for A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts' first season as a starter.
Always been competitive. Yeah.
Made the playoffs. Then, they were like... 14-3. This year they were 14-3. They were 11-6. Like, they always had a winning record with Sirianni. You have to give him credit. The point of head coach is to win games and to win a Super Bowl. Now he's going to be in Eagles history forever. No matter what happens after this, he's now cemented himself. And at this point, like, you just keep rolling this back and back and back because this is sustainable. You have young players on that defense, and scary to watch, man. Scary to watch for sure. But
interested to see how they cap it off next year.
Just circle back to this one more time before we move on. Mahomes, Chiefs. You said you're not worried. What do you see? What do you think this leads for them next year? Like the AFC, is it wide open again now, or like does this could leave room? Remember, they still ran the table in the AFC. They beat the Texans. They beat the Bills. They beat the Ravens last year. Are they still going to run the table again? Because it seems like they still have a stranglehold in the AFC. Do you think this like loosens the shield a little bit now for everyone else?
I think now, again, like you said before, they're not they're the hunted at this point. So, teams see their weaknesses and and they love to see that. And they're going to take advantage of that now too. So, I'm curious to see how they respond to this and how they bounce back and if they bounce back.
Before we get into the next topic, Dylan, I just want to go over, your boy Kendrick, Super Bowl halftime show. You loved it. You said it was one of the best. I liked it too. I just feel like sometimes I couldn't hear him. I feel like the music was like louder than his voice. But other than that, yeah, good performance.
They're not like us. What can I say?
Yeah, he was. Obviously he couldn't say certain lyrics. I mean, I expected that too. Like,
he choreographed it very well.
Serena Williams was out there. That was kind of funny.
That was a shot at Drake.
Well, I'm pretty sure she's also but she's also from Compton, where he's from. So yeah, that was another thing.
No, I honestly, it was the best. I enjoyed it. I was hanging out with a bunch of people. We were all kind of because you didn't know if he was going to actually do this song.
Yeah, there was controversy about that.
He was even like giving the camera looks like as he was singing it. It was great. I love the beef. There was so much that went into it. But I've heard a lot of people say it's like worst halftime show ever. It's just like it's
the same people. It's like our parents.
Like when they were doing U2 like years ago. I'm like, what is this, bro? Like So it's like it tends to whatever group that likes that type of stuff.
You bring up a good point. Like it's always the older people. You know what I mean? But like they're always trying to cater to like us and like teenagers, high schoolers. Like that's what they're going for. They don't give a shit about. No offense. They don't give a shit about the 60-year-olds, the 50-year-olds, the 70-year-olds. Our parents are always going to say that shit.
And it was the most viewed halftime show in history. So
it's funny how that works too. But my parents are all like, this is terrible. Like, why?
They said that too.
Yeah, of course they did. They will do. Yeah. It's usually how it works, and we'll get it. I love Kendrick. There were some songs I wish he would have played, like Good Kid, Mad City, stuff like that. Bitch, Don't Kill My Vibe. It's things like some of the older stuff too. You could have mixed some stuff. That's my only criticism about it. Like, mix some older stuff in there, but hey, it was still a great halftime performance. I enjoyed watching it. I thought it was interesting.
I did. I was a little wasted too. I think I enjoyed it more than I should have. But it was
good.
A good time.
It was good. It was good for sure. I thought it was good. Not everyone, but everyone likes to hate. Everyone likes to hate. Let's be honest.
You can't tend to everyone.
You can't. You can't tend? I mean, no one can tend this guy. Aaron Rodgers, my friend. Oof. Apparently, so he went to fly in to Jersey to visit the Jets, talking about potentially being on the team next year, only to be informed that they're going to be moving on from him. But there's more. Recent reports, Diana Rossini, so she's a trusted source, there was a separate message sent to them before that. So they had a conversation with conditions before they told him that they were going to move on from him. Diana Rossini said that the Jets previously, before that, told Rodgers that if he returns, he'd have to ditch Pat McAfee show. He would not be able to go and have weekly appearances on the Pat McAfee show. That's one. Second condition, he would be expected to participate in all the off-season activities. So no ayahuasca trips, no Egypt, So two conditions. No more Pat McAfee every Tuesday, no ayahuasca trip in the middle of training camp.
As a business, as you know, a business and a corporation, that's something that seems very reasonable. You don't want your guy, every week going on a live show explaining what's going on the week, the drama that's going on. It's just like, you don't want that stuff, and it's the exact reason why a lot of people don't want to do Hard Knocks and stuff like that. They want to keep everything in house. They don't want outside media to stir things up. I mean, I know. After everything that went on with the Giants in the offseason, that they're thinking about getting rid of that, because now there's the whole thing going on, that's on replay of the
visual
owner.
of him laughing. Yeah, and
it's like, I'm gonna have nightmares about this. It's like it embarrassed the franchise.
Yes, it really did, and it's weird because the connection between this mandate and the Jets moving on from Rodgers is unknown. Like, it's not clear. So, like, all we know is that the Jets gave Rodgers these 2 requirements, and then shortly after that, they were telling him they were moving on from him. Fill in the blanks in between. My assumption is Rodgers said, "Fuck off." You know what I mean? Like,
something along the lines, or he didn't take it well.
Right.
Even if he did accept it, it caused, like, if you're serious about a team, you're like, yeah, man, screw it. Yeah, that's in the past. Let's focus on this.
Isn't that the only thing that makes sense in this situation? Because they gave him the mandates shortly after told him they were moving on from him. What happened in between seems like he wasn't agreeing with it. Yeah. So that's the only thing that makes sense, right?
I can't see if he was completely agreeing with it, saying, hey, I'm for the team, that they would have got rid of him a couple days later. Right. So you got to assume.
Maybe the Jets are putting this out there to cover their ass. Be like, hey, we gave him a chance. But,
and it's unfortunate because, it kind of makes him look bad for the next team, too.
But where's he going to go now? The Raiders? The Titans? Like, the Browns? The Giants? These are all teams.
Keep him out of New York.
Those 4 teams that I listed are in the top 8 of the draft. You know what I mean? So, like, you're kind of screwed if you're Aaron Rodgers. Like, this was your last chance to be on a somewhat competitive team. I honestly think the Giants make the most sense of this
49ers?
Choice. Well, I'm hearing reports that they're going to pay Purdy. We don't know how much, but they're going to pay him. So he's in a stuck situation here because the Jets, they were terrible last season, but they have some talent on the roster. Like, maybe this was the best spot for you to stay. Like, honestly, Aaron Rodgers should have been begging to come back to the Jets, and from the reports, it sounded like he flew out there to make sure that happened. So, like, what happened in that meeting? Like, who knows? But
you know how he is. He's just, he likes to be in control.
He wants to feel needed too. You know, he doesn't want to be the one that's being desperate. But so, like, I think this is the Jets taking back their organization too. Aaron Glenn taking a stand, being like, "This is my goddamn show, and you're not fucking this up."
It was an embarrassment. I mean, let's be honest. This is like a huge embarrassment. He came in, walked all over the Jets, and he kind of tarnished their name.
One of the worst experiments of all time. The Russell Wilson experiment up there, the Deshaun Watson experiment, Aaron Rodgers third. Like, that's how bad it was.
I think Rodgers might be
over
second.
Watson, though? Okay, well, I think Watson first.
You
Wilson
have
third.
to. I mean, I don't mean to jump off topic, but like, you got to assume Watson's going to be good when he comes back. He's young. I mean,
he may never play again. He just tore his ACL again, so like he may never play again.
No, meniscus, but
meniscus.
Achilles.
Oh, it was Achilles.
Yeah,
okay,
which is even
my
worse.
apologies. Yeah, exactly. But when he played, he was like statistically one of the worst quarterbacks in NFL history that season. It was pretty bad. Russell Wilson, they did go 8-9, I think, one season. So even that was a little better. So Rodgers, Jets.
But like, you had to know this was going to happen.
You won 5 games, and like I hear people talking about, oh, look at Aaron Rodgers' numbers. He threw 28 touchdowns or whatever. It's the third or second best season in Jets history. That's a low bar, my friend. That is a low bar. He was average. We watched him, bro. Just because the numbers look good. We always said that, too. The numbers look better than how it was in the field. The numbers always looked better. Remember? We were like, look at the numbers and be like, oh, it's not that bad. But then when you're watching the game, he looks frantic. His footwork's kind of all over the place. Mm-hmm. He was missing wide open guys at times. Like, things he used to never do back in the day. He was always accurate. Always hit the guy in stride. He was missing guys. Like, something was off. His mojo's gone.
I think this is a huge win for the Jets. No matter what happens at this, get rid of the cancer. Cut the cancer out, get rid of it, start over.
I'll roll with Tyrod Taylor next year.
Tyrod Taylor, for a year? Stafford. There's a couple names going around. Stafford's talking about, a New York team.
Oh, well, if they could get Stafford,
Russell Wilson.
I would love to go out and get Sam Darnold, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Russell Wilson's not a bad idea.
I think he's still like Sam Darnold. I think it would still go back to the Jets. I know, like during during the whole the honor.
Oh yes, they joked about the Jets,
and he was not happy.
Yeah.
So I think he still has his heart out for the Jets.
Maybe he feels like he has something to prove. Like I don't know. That's a good point though.
So, lot of things up in the air. New York,
The Giants, honestly, both of these teams, the Giants and the Jets, they don't know their quarterback situation. They don't have the luxury of being able to know because of their draft picks.
Well, I think the Giants might have a shot.
They're third, right?
They're third.
Or they're fourth. Well, they're fourth, but the Patriots aren't taking the quarterback, right?
No, yes, that's what it is. That's what it is.
Right. So
things are still up in the air. We're only going to know draft day. It's going to be an exciting one. As a New York fan, as a Giants fan, it's going to be exciting.
Look, we know Tennessee's taking the quarterback at 1. It really depends on what the Cleveland Browns do at 2. That's going to define everything. Or someone trades up like the Raiders.
We can see stuff solidified, prematurely. Stafford and all these free agents. They might, we might see it beforehand.
Speaking of Stafford, stay on the facility of the Rams. Cooper Kupp. They told him they're going to trade him.
Yeah, and he said beforehand that he wanted to stay a Ram for his career. For life.
He's kind of shot, so I understand. So, what could you really get for him, though? I'm pretty sure his contract's pretty pricey.
He could still be a solid number 2 on another team, and I feel like I think he would be good.
What about Debo? So Debo requested a trade too. Well, Kupp didn't request a trade, but Debo requested a trade. Where would he? That's another one. Apparently, he's going to be
Whoever
out.
can use him.
And he's kind of fallen off a little bit. Not fallen off, but he hasn't been as dominant. Tampa. If the Giants could use him.
Giants could use him, but I feel like they're not ready. I feel like wide receiver is more towards almost finished.
Right. Debo threatened to demand a trade a couple of years ago, right after his very dominant season. I think in 2021, and they ended up paying him. The Jets offered them the number 10 pick and whatever the player for Debo, and the Niners turned it down and paid them. We go back to that. If we redid that, I think they would have taken that trade because he kind of fell off after that point. He's still good. He still has moments where he runs for 80 yards for a touchdown, but then he misses 3 games, So it's like...
He would be a solid 2 on another team. He would be. And I feel like, it's just being around the same guys for a while, clicking with other... Because there's a lot of stars there, and it's like, if you're not the number 1 star or the number 2, it kind of hurts,
Right.
And the 49ers, they had so many stars,
They did. Now those stars are getting older. George Kittle. McCaffrey
CMC,
getting hurt. Yeah. Ayuk out for the year. So, they needed Debo to step up last season, and he didn't, So, it's tough. But, hey.
What a season.
Another season in the books,
in the books, man.
So, we'll take probably a month off here because it's a grind, man. It is really crazy how, this season went pretty quick, though. I feel like our first season doing this, it kind of dragged out. This one, it flew. It really did fly. I don't know what to say because usually at this point...
It's hey, we'll see you next week.
Not next week. Exactly, and I don't think it's hit me yet either, that it's over. So what's just going on?
I need 2 weeks to go by. I'm wait, no football. God.
Yeah, and it's funny because everyone... you're lying if you're not... you have to be... obsessed to not get sick of it.
You get fatigue. I get so fatigued.
Come on, there's a game almost every day. There's 20 games on Sunday. Obviously not 20 games, but it's 8 games in the morning, and it's
the midway through, week 10 to 12 to 13, before you hit that spot where
at the end where it matters. It's jet lag.
It's you get such fatigue.
It's going through the motions in a way. So that's why the break's good. Mm-hmm. That's why football's so special. It's 1 game a week for each team, 4 months out of the season, then for 8 months it's gone, disappears. Now we have a whole off season, lots of unknown, and think about this. I'll end it on this episode. Going into the season, let's take it way back, beginning of the season. Who would have thought the Philadelphia Eagles would win the Super Bowl, Dylan? Who would? It's crazy, honestly.
Another one is, who would have thought the Commanders make it to the NFC Championship?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I had the Commanders... Maybe 3 wins. I gotta look at my list.
I had them 2.
Very low.
Me too.
That was my biggest shocker of the season.
Yeah. What's the biggest shock for me?
I think we need to take an episode and just recap the season.
Of what we predicted.
Our predictions. Yeah, and just go over everything.
That's true. What else was the biggest shock to me? I'm trying to think. AFC. We got the two teams in the AFC West, the Chargers and the Broncos, specifically the Broncos, $85 million dead cap with Russell Wilson, bring in Bo Nix, who was considered the worst quarterback out of the six in the draft, and then he was competing with Jaden Daniels for Rookie of the Year. Great season from Sean
Steelers
Payton.
is up there, just halfway through the season, not knowing what they're doing quarterback wise. It's just.
And then they felt like they were like the surprise of the year. They were like 10-2 at 10-3 at one point.
Just all
fell apart. They just
yeah.
fell apart. They lost 4 straight. Now
and they continue to keep their positive season, but first round exits
again.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, are they gonna finally beat? Are they finally gonna
win a playoff game?
It?
Yeah. Oh man, that AFC North. Yeah, the Bengals missing the playoffs. That's another shocker.
The whole AFC North.
Yeah.
The one division that I thought was, all teams are going to be hitting on those cylinders.
Yeah.
Nope. I thought the Browns were going to be good.
Yeah, well, they were last year with Flacco. That's the whole thing. Like,
A lot of shockers. I think that was my biggest shocker, the Browns.
Yeah,
Sean
the
Watson.
Browns.
Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest shock for me
is the Jets.
The New York Jets.
The New York Jets.
I thought they would be competitive. I thought they would at least be in 8-9.
And I did too.
You look at the players, and like sometimes you see players on the roster, but it doesn't mean they're going to mesh together. And I think that was the situation here.
Through the third week, I knew.
Yeah.
It was hard to absorb it as a Jets. It's like, no.
It was after that Vikings game in London where he threw like that pick six, and they fired Saleh shortly after that. I knew it was over.
Yeah, once they fired Saleh, it's like you got to.
After 5 games, it was almost insanity. So Woody Johnson said he's going to back off now. I hope he does that, but he said he's going to let Aaron Glenn run the show. He's going to let the GM run the show.
So at least it's not Dallas, all right?
That's another one that's a mess. We haven't even brought up Dallas. That's a mess too, all on its own. Apparently, there's rumors that they might be looking at trading Micah Parsons. And CeeDee Lamb came out on social media and said, why do we always got to be the biggest headlines? Why can't we just be quiet for once?
The team of America.
Yeah, well, the team of America. Yeah, well, it's not looking like that anymore. It's like the most hated team in America. And lots of shockers. I mean, that one we knew Dallas would come into the season struggling, but then Dak got hurt. They were awful. Then they kind of picked it up. Mike McCarthy
again.
left.
I think we need to take an episode and just go through each team and just where they failed, where they succeed, and what teams are looking good, what teams are looking bad.
We'll have a long off season to do
yeah,
that,
we're going to have a lot of good content coming out, guys.
Thanks, dude.
Of course.
Another great season. We'll be more of a virtual setting like this kind of podcast. Look, we might still have some studio episodes once in a while, but this whole podcasting might be ending soon. We'll do a little virtual thing.
We'll play around with it, see what works.
We will, exactly.
It's going to be an adjustment.
Right, exactly. So subscribe, and share. Just keep supporting us.
Let's do it, man.
We'll be back shortly. I guess we'll see you in a few weeks.
See you for the 2024 season.
Take care. Bye.